First year of college entrance exam reintroduction, I tore up my exam paper in public and went up the mountain to herd cattle. The daughter of the farm manager, often praised as a genius, lost her mind when she heard. In my past life, I took the college entrance exam with her. I was accused of cheating because our answer sheets were the same, but she was the first to hand in her paper. Even my fiancé, who was supposed to stand by me, believed I had copied her. I tried to prove my innocence, but no one believed me. I was banned from taking the exams for 3 years and lost the chance to return to the city. I had to stay on the farm, enduring the manager's harassment day and night. Eventually, I was labeled as promiscuous and beaten to death in the cattle barn. My parents tried to clear my name, but were accused of being capitalists and stripped of their wealth. They died with regret. To my dying day, I never understood how my hard-studied answers could have matched hers. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day before the exam. The northern wind howled outside. "Carrie, open the door. I brought you the test papers," called my boyfriend John from outside. Seeing my body had no pain, I realized I had been reborn. The calendar was on the day before the exam. Back then, John braved the cold to bring me the mock papers. I looked at his cracked face, feeling a sting in my heart. This was the same face that later accused me of cheating along with others. In the winter of 1977, while waiting eagerly for my exam results, I was dragged to the admin office. They showed me 2 identical test papers. Parents outside the exam hall sided with Linda, saying they saw her leave the hall first, and that I must have copied her. To prove I didn't cheat, I showed them notes I had made while studying, covered with all sorts of question solutions. But they tore them apart before my eyes. Everyone knew the manager's daughter was a genius, while I was just an average student. They said I was trying to fool people with my notes. My boyfriend also sided against me, and I became the target of accusations and fists. I was banned from exams for 3 years, forcibly returned to the farm, and lost the right to return to the city. After that, the manager harassed me even more openly, often in front of others. I resisted, and he smeared my reputation. Eventually, villagers beat me in the cattle barn. In the freezing winter, my mouth filled with the taste of blood, while the manager's wife's voice cursed me, claiming I'd seduced their son Ken. My parents, trying to clear my name, were incriminated as capitalists, lost their assets, and died in despair. The exam I anticipated for years became a death warrant for my family. Being given another chance, I vowed to uncover the truth and restore my family's innocence. John's voice broke my thoughts. "Carrie, what are you thinking? Hurry up and finish the paper, so we can go to the teacher's house. Linda will be there. We could hear what topics she's been told to focus on." Watching John's honest and simple demeanor, I found it hard to reconcile it with his previous deceitfulness. Why did he change so much, and why were there 2 identical papers? Everyone said Linda was a genius, yet she never had any books at home, but always scored well. They praised her, but I wasn't envious, as I could solve those questions too. I never dared to show my true ability. When I was sent to the countryside, my mom tearfully told me to study, but not to shine too much, or else it would bring trouble. So my parents were the only ones who believed that every stroke on my test came from years of accumulated knowledge. Before going to the countryside, I had read all the books left by my grandfather, and I never stopped learning. With my knowledge, handling the first college entrance exam would have been easy. Hearing Linda was at the teacher's house, I immediately headed there without looking at the paper. Inside, I heard Linda complaining about being rushed. Her mock paper was still blank. Seeing me, she forced a smile. A few other students were there, with the manager by her side. Seeing him made me shiver involuntarily, so I quickly sat next to John. Just as I took out my paper, Linda began writing. After completing my problems, John took my notes and eagerly compared answers with others. Linda stood poised, waiting for the teacher to correct her paper. "See, I told you I'd remember soon," she claimed confidently. I noticed her problem-solving methods mirrored what I had written on my notes. I wondered if she had seen my answers. Just as I tried to get a closer look at her steps, Linda pushed me away. "Candy, are you anxious to copy from me, because you can't solve them?" she teased. John didn't like her tone. Come on. It's not the actual exam. Why be so harsh if she wants to look? The manager chuckled. Maybe someone would even dare to copy on the real exam. A chill ran down my spine, recalling the accusation of cheating. Why were Linda and the manager making such remarks? Did they predict I'd write the same answers as Linda? John couldn't argue with the manager, so he consoled me to ignore them. Watching John's supportive gesture, I felt a pang of emotion. I hid my abilities, willing to be a poor student. John, aside from my parents, knew the truth and often defended me. Yet after the exam in my past life, he was the first to accuse me, saying, I saw Candy sitting behind them, watching Linda's paper. Her results were always ordinary. No way she wrote an essay like Linda's. He became the sole witness against me. Every word John says pushes me deeper into despair. I can't figure out why he would betray me, especially now that he seems to care. Linda nudges John deliberately, though it looks like more of an excuse for extra touching. Could John have shared my answers with her? But how? The exam hall is so strict, and I was seated right behind Linda. How could she have written something exactly like mine? Questions whirl around my mind, getting more confusing by the minute. Linda didn't have the genius tag before my mom and I were assigned to the farm. Just a bit after we arrived, whispers started about the plant manager's daughter, Linda, being a child prodigy. She hadn't studied much, yet was reciting ancient poetry like it was second nature. She kept skipping grades, and when we heard the college entrance exams were resuming, she was raring to go. As I thought about all this, I eyed Linda closely. She noticed my stare and gave me a sidelong glance filled with defiance. The math problems are boring. How about the teacher gives us a script topic to practice? Linda said. The teacher agreed and kindly told me, your foundation isn't as strong as Linda's. Maybe think about it a little, and if you can't write it out, it's okay. I chuckled. Upon seeing the topic, it seemed so simple I constructed an entire piece in my mind in under 3 minutes. As I started writing, Linda finished quickly. Everyone clamored to see her masterpiece. Linda sneered. This essay really shouldn't be written out. If someone uses it as a base for theirs, how can I defend myself? The plant manager overheard and barked. Who dares to belittle my daughter? Linda's the brightest around, and if someone writes just like her, they've copied her. His gaze shifted towards me, and memories of his harassment in my past life flooded my mind, making my stomach churn with nausea. The students echoed that no one would dare copy the plant manager's daughter. The chatter turned to echoing the teacher as he highly praised Linda's essay. He exclaimed, how mature. Standing out in this first college exam year. This could hold its own even in college. I glanced at my half-finished draft, riddled with doubt. Could Linda truly be some kind of genius? I stood, disregarding the looks around me, and grabbed the essay from the teacher. My pupils widened in disbelief. It was just like the essay in my head, word for word. I clutched my draft in disbelief. I hadn't finished writing yet. How could she know what parts one hadn't put down? Was she possibly clairvoyant? As I pondered where things went wrong, stabbing pain shot through my hand. Carrie, what did you write? Let me see, demanded John, yanking the draft from my hands. Panic surged as I snatched the draft back, tearing it to shreds. The room fell silent. John stood stunned by my unusual behavior. Linda raised an eyebrow, clearly hiding something. Or maybe it's plagiarized. Every eye turned to me, but I maintained my grip on the torn pieces until my nails pierced my palm. John's voice faded into white noise. I grabbed my bag and hurried out. The thought that they could have seen an identical essay to Linda's was terrifying. I ran home, fearful of facing accusations like in my past life. The frigid winter air seeped through my sweater, and cold sweats chilled my back. The college entrance exam was tomorrow. If Linda and I were synced, our results might match. Back home, my mom was stoking the fire, hands now rough from years of labor. The news of the exam's return had her in tears of joy. She said, Ming, I've waited for this day. You must try your best in the exam. Her hopeful eyes filled me with unease. Repeating the past would be disastrous, but skipping it would crush her dreams. I forced calm. First year of exams coming back. If I don't pass, there's always next time. I've studied hard. I'll make it. The next morning, she was up early to make breakfast, serving precious bacon we rarely touched. But I couldn't risk it. The exams were crucial, yes, but the family's well-being was more so. I took my exam ID and left the house. I could take the exam, but not like before. An idea struck me, bold and desperate, but I was out of options. Linda was already seated when I hesitated outside the exam hall. Our exam numbers were consecutive. I waited until the last second before entering. She visibly relaxed as I entered. Her constant watchfulness was like back when I showed the mock-up at the teacher's place. If she could read my mind, perhaps she'd be on edge now. The exam began. I read the first few questions closely. Linda began writing fluidly, while I held off. Closing my eyes, I purged all exam thoughts. The scribbling noises halted, like Linda relied on my mind to work. She continued writing only while I was thinking. Stop, and she was stuck. I tore the paper. The sound pierced through, disrupting destiny. This candidate. What are you doing? Who allowed you to tear up the test paper? The proctor barked angrily. I smiled. Sorry, teacher. This question's just too hard. I can't answer it. I'm giving up the exam. In front of me, Linda's shoulders shook. She whipped around. Her eyes were icy, like daggers ready to pierce through me. I just shrugged. The proctor sighed. What a mess. Just leave the exam hall then. Don't disturb the other candidates. I grabbed my backpack and dashed out. Parents waiting outside looked stunned. So fast to finish a test? This kid must be amazing. Bound for a top university. I laughed loudly. Noticed an expression standing out in the crowd. The factory director frowned. His eyes narrowed, squinting so you couldn't see his pupils. But he was definitely staring at me. With pursed lips and clenched jaw, I waved to the crowd outside. They told me to hurry home for lunch and prepare for the next class. I tossed my backpack over my shoulder. Shouted, I'm done. I'm not doing any more tests. Going home to take care of the cows. People started talking loudly. Oh, this kid's just a bad student. Turning in early. Everyone chuckled. I thought he was really something. Guess being first out isn't that impressive. Huh? I laughed along. Yeah, first out isn't all that. Except the factory director wasn't laughing. Little brat. Who said you could skip the exam? He rolled up his sleeves, pushed through the crowd. In 3 quick strides, he was in my face. He raised his hand to slap me. My mocking smile seemed to anger him. He waved his fist around but didn't strike. Because the police outside weren't just standing by. I just had to yell. And they surrounded the director. What's going on? Why is there fighting? I smeared blood from one cheek to the other. Complained sadly. Officer, protect me. This guy hit a student outside the exam hall. Now I've got a headache. The director glared, veins popping. Go back and take your test. The cops took him away. And he was still shouting for me to return to my exam. Luckily, my mom arrived just in time. Otherwise, folks might think the director was my dad, caring so much about my exams. Mom gently touched my face, her eyes full of concern. That scoundrel hit so hard. I laughed it off, no biggie. But I fear this year's exam might be out of the question. Mom was taken aback, hugged me tight, said it didn't matter. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Knowledge is in your head. Whenever you want to test, as long as exams exist, you can. I went home, grabbed a couple of cornbreads, and headed up the hill to watch the cows. No sooner had I settled on the slope, Linda came striding over, angry and demanding I return to the test. I wasn't just working on that farm for nothing. I had worked up some muscle. She couldn't move me, and turned to shoving. I pushed her away. Then John came along. Carrie, go easy on her. She's the director's daughter. We can't offend her. Linda dusted herself off, her voice hoarse from yelling. I'm ordering you to take the test. If you don't, your whole family won't be let back into the city. I smirked. Better not go back than to die here. Linda gave John a look. You remember what you promised, right? If your girlfriend doesn't cooperate, you'll pay too. John nodded, whispered something to Linda, looking nervous and ashamed. I waited for him to explain, but he said nothing, just pulled me down the hill. Candy, I get that you're smart. Used to be scared for anyone to know, so you wouldn't show your teachers your completed work, and hid your writing. But it's different now. The exam's back. Show your talent now. Why hide? John wasn't capable, but at least he was considerate. when my dad was sent to the frontier, and Mom and I were moved from the commune to the farm. It's thanks to his family's help we faced less discrimination. But now, I wasn't sure whose side he was on. I won't take it, even if I do. It wouldn't be with Linda. I shrugged his hand off, settled under a big tree at the village edge, stubbornly not moving. John suddenly seemed a different person. No warmth, no care. He yanked my hair, dragging me up. I'd never seen him so wild. You have to take it with Linda. He was so fierce, I could barely resist. He half dragged, half pulled me 10 yards. My clothes got torn. I screamed, until villagers came, armed with tools, and drove John away. Among them, the villagers always muttering. She stared, muttering about ghosts and spirits. I tried to leave, and she bound me with her arms. I struggled. She held tighter. Girl, listen to me. You have bad spirits on you. They must leave. Her shout. And I stopped struggling. Even if superstition is nonsense. Since my mother and I were relocated, we've seen and heard things. Unexplainable. We dare not think too deeply on it. She turned my shoulders. Child, remember when you used to have those terrible headaches? It was like someone was chanting inside your head. I nodded. Yeah, that was ages ago. Back when my mom and I first came to the farm. I realized something then. When we moved to the farm, our place was this mud house the foreman arranged for us at the village entrance. I used to get headaches a lot back then. I kept telling my mom I was dying, couldn't sleep at night, hearing someone mumble in my ear. My mom was worried. She'd stay up with me every night. But before midnight, she'd fall into a deep sleep. Wouldn't wake up even if I shook her. Scared, I went to find John. Asked his parents to help me. They reluctantly agreed. And would you believe, 3 days later, my headache vanished, and the voices were gone. Convinced it was a miracle, my mom even set up an engagement between me and John. I was too young to know anything, thought, just another playmate. We'll worry about the rest later. Auntie snapped me out of my thoughts. The headache, was it something serious? I didn't dare dismiss it lightly now, put on a serious face. Auntie saw I actually believed her, tears welled in her eyes. Sweet child, someone put a curse on you. It's a nasty one, could be fatal. I can help, but you must truly believe in me. Hearing this, I quickly bowed to her. It's not like I'm being rash. It's just that Linda and what we've been through, it's all too spooky. Once you've ruled out all possibilities, whatever's left has to be the truth. Auntie claimed my boyfriend John might be involved in it too. This curse not only messes with your mind, but drains the energy of those around. With John hanging around me all the time, he couldn't not be affected. The way he pulled me earlier, he's probably done something to avoid the bad energy from me. Curious, I asked Andy what to do next. She retrieved a talisman from her place, told me to carry it for 3 days, even in my sleep. Plus avoid Linda. She'd handle it after 3 days by burning the talisman at my house. I thanked her, but no way could I let this slide. Auntie, I confessed, I've already died once before. I was brutally wronged by the foreman's family. There's no way I'm letting them get away this time. Auntie's face grew grave. You've got a huge injustice in your past, then. Good. Revenge is easier. Being wronged in a past life, that talisman can be used to turn the curse back. But the curse water must be consumed by the target. I thought about it. Since I believe her, might as well do as she says. Told my mom everything. Then moved to our basement for those 3 days until Auntie came to burn the talisman. Those 3 days weren't easy. On the first night, Linda showed up demanding to see me. Candy, if you don't come out, I'll stay right here at your place. You can't hide forever, she shouted from inside the house. I heard everything clearly from the basement. Neighbors wondered what was up. Linda, self-righteous, claimed, Candy got my dad arrested. I need an explanation. I almost laughed. Thankfully, Auntie warned me, if Linda stayed long, the mental link could reform. I had to break off communication. Probably, she wanted to spend the night, hoping I'd solve some problems for her, extending her memory, and helping her through exams tomorrow. Lucky I had Auntie's second talisman on our door. That way, even in the same yard, she couldn't mess with my mind. By midnight, with no sight of me, Linda got anxious, saying I wasn't a proper girl, not staying home at night. Stirred up John's parents next door. They barged in, turning my yard into a scene. knocking on the basement door until dirt spilled, making me cough. I held my breath, scared to be found, face turning red. Usually reasonable, John's mom suddenly shouted, "Where is this kid? At least say you're all right. Staying out all night isn't what decent girls do. If John marries someone like this, it'll be an embarrassment." My mom, always valuing the engagement, seemed under a spell too. Except today, she put it aside. "If it's shameful, don't push the marriage. Besides, I wouldn't want Candy to marry John," she retorted. "If it wasn't for us curing Candy, would she be so lively now?" Something dropped with a thud, shaking the ground. Then my mom's voice cut through. "These are her dowry. Our most valuable stuff is all here. If you want to settle the healing debt, take it. But a debt isn't marriage. I won't let her marry you." The village crowd, surprised by this, agreed it was right. Selling a daughter for medical bills? No way. John's mom flustered, shielded her face and hurried home with John's dad. No matter how Linda shouted, they didn't look back. Her trick failed, she didn't see me, and left the next day. The exams? She skipped, claiming she fell ill. On the third day, Auntie arrived to burn the talisman. I brought John along. He seemed thinner. Seeing Auntie, he knelt before me. "Carrie, my parents didn't mean to ruin things for us," John pleaded. "They want this marriage too. Don't let gossip tear us apart. About helping with your exams. It was thoughtless. But what I did was to get you a diploma. Make it easier to return to the city." I chuckled, tougher than past life, falsely accused. Pulling John up, I carefully wrapped the talisman ashes with him watching, stashed them in a cabinet. John asked what it was. "Playing it mysterious," I said. "Auntie claims I was cursed. Someone could steal from my mind. If this curse stirs again, we can't remove it, only suppress it with meds. But it must remain hidden, or my mind's gone for good." John's fingers trembled slightly. He looked up at me, eyes shaking. We barely said a few words before I sent him home. In the middle of the night, I heard noise by the cupboard. I knew he came to steal after all. Who knew he wouldn't hand the stuff over to Linda, but drink it himself? Human greed is unimaginable. I thought John was just Linda's errand boy, but he wanted the same mind-sharing ability I have. After drinking that stuff, screaming erupted from John's house. John's parents cried their hearts out, calling everyone in the village to come see what was up. People crowded from his yard to my doorstep. Those coming from his house said John had gone crazy. He was unconscious, lying lifeless on the ground. John's mom wailed him back to life. But when he woke, he shouted he was the daughter of the farm manager. It scared John's parents stiff, thinking he was possessed. They burned incense, prayed, even sought shamans. Nothing worked. John saw himself in the mirror and was terrified. Without a word, he tried to run to the manager's house. "Carrie, maybe you should come with me to the manager's house. After all, he's your fiancé." The fellow villager grabbed me, and we ran to the manager's house. I didn't get close, just watched from afar. John pounded furiously on the manager's door. The manager opened the door, already cursing, then kicked John in the chest. Too urgent, disturbing people's sleep in the middle of the night. John suffered, but called out "Father." The manager's wife heard and got furious, demanding an explanation from the manager. That's when Linda showed up, shoulders swaying, strutting towards him like a man. Seeing John's mom dragging him crying, telling the manager to let John in, talking first. People couldn't see more with the gate closed, so they dispersed. John's parents stayed at the G's door all night. Next morning, when John emerged, he went crazier, covered in bloodstained injuries, shouting that if his mom didn't recognize him, let the family fall apart. He ran to town, reporting the manager's bribery and illegal hold on files. Authorities came to investigate. Villagers found out several women had been harassed by the manager. Before the punishment, someone bagged and beat the manager. He fainted in cow dung, laying frozen overnight, eventually freezing to death. The manager's wife went looking for him, got so scared she lost her mind, fell off a bridge, and drowned on her way back to get help. Once Linda knew her parents were dead, and the investigation threatened to confiscate their home. She fiercely claimed not to be related to the guests. No one believed her. Later that night, Linda stabbed John to death. People said it was impossible. How could Linda, a small girl, overpower John? But I knew. Linda's reckless courage came from Eugene's thoughts in her head. Eugene didn't resist, because the Linda in his mind felt inferior. I learned later from the old lady, if Linda drank that mixture, she'd return all the luck and knowledge she stole from me. But if John drank it, they'd swap brains, forming a life bond. When one dies, the other wouldn't survive either. Before Linda's sentencing, John died mysteriously. His parents aged 10 years instantly on hearing the news. My mom, seeing 2 families destroyed, felt anxious, saying it's enough if I stay alive. I smiled at her, assuring her I not only wanted to live, but aimed to pass the college entrance exam. The next year, I was the only farm kid accepted into college. The new manager was honest, leading the villagers to send us off with gongs and drums. My father's name was cleared that year too. Our family of 3 finally reunited in the city. On New Year, watching the snow, eating dumplings, the old lady sent me a letter via a young villager. The letter revealed that our old house held secrets. Ken initially targeted us, as we were an educated family, wanting to perform some mind-link sorcery, only interrupted by John's family halfway. John got a wife, Linda, but only retrieved thoughts from my mind. When he betrayed later, it was likely he saw no more use in me. As I read the letter, I remembered last year's bizarre tales, like they were a dream. Luckily, the dream didn't consume me. I put down the letter, picked up a book surrounded by family. In this life, I can finally be an upright scholar. And that's just fine. The end.